Hey everybody, I'm Randy.
I'm Steve.
Welcome to Bible Over Beer. This is going to be 2 Kings Part 2, chapters 6 through 10. We have been taking a little bit of a break. So we're going to try to hop back on the wagon here. I'm still having some voice issues, but I think everybody can understand me. So
And it's YouTube. Nobody even knows.
yeah. So if you've been reading ahead, hopefully, go ahead. You don't need to stick with us. Go ahead and come back and watch our videos, and we'll try to catch up to you. So, chapter 6 through 10. We're going to start chapter 6 here. Title, An Axe Head Floats.
Yep.
All right. A company of prophets suggested to Elisha that they travel to Jordan and build a place where they could meet.
They can kind of stay together, which...
Exactly. And he agreed. So while cutting trees, an axe head fell into the river. Elisha asked in verse 6, where did it fall? And a man pointed to a spot, and Elisha tossed a stick in and made the axe head float.
So this is interesting, too, because they made a big deal out about this axe head. Mm. So, I mean, it was important, right? He can make metal float. But, the one guy's like, I borrowed this. So he saved the day, Elisha.
Again, and I noticed through these chapters, we have some random stories. It's just like, if you kind of continue, you think a story is going to continue on to the next, and then it's just all of a sudden it's something.
Yeah, we noticed like that in the last few, like especially Kings, and then it's just a lot of stuff. And it's kind of all over the place. And we've slowed it down. Yeah. So we're just doing like 5 chapters just to make sure we digest it and understand it.
So this man was worried about the axe head because he had borrowed it from somebody.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Made it float, and the man was able to lift it out. Elisha traps blinded. How do you say that word? Arameans.
Arameans.
Thank you, sir. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, in verse 8, I will set up my camp in such and such place. Elisha warned the king of Israel of the location of the camp. So Elisha got wind of this and went and told the king of Israel, this is where they'll be. The king of Aram, am I saying that correctly?
I believe so, yeah.
Suspected a spy in his ranks. In verse 11, he says, tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel? And this is, again, he must have caught wind that he didn't know it was Elisha.
Well, they know his moves. Like everywhere they move, they're out of the way. So.
Yep. And an officer told him it was Elisha. It was reported that Elisha was in Dothan, and he sent men to capture him. Elisha's servant saw this and told Elisha in verse 16, those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed, open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses, of chariots of fire all around him. Horses.
God's got their back.
Yep. That'd be pretty amazing to see. Horses and chariots of fire. When approaching Elisha, he asked the Lord to strike them with blindness.
That's the attackers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So he saw the attackers come, and he said, strike them with blindness. Then he led them to the city of Samaria, and their sight was restored. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them? Instead, the Lord told him to feed them, and he did. Then he sent them back to their master, and they stopped raiding Israel's lands.
It was kind of, it was an interesting thing. Instead of, because they were going to try to attack them, and he led them to where they were could be easily killed. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was just kind of shine the light that, hey, we're not against you, kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
And it was important to know too, though. Elijah prayed to God, now open their eyes. So we want to make sure that, because everything these prophets do, and we've learned. Yeah.
They didn't kill them. I mean, what are we figuring out here? They are all one people. He's trying to.
So I don't understand. Like I said, it kind of goes over. So please comment. Let us know. Give us some references. I read the Bibles for Dummies section on this, and it skips to what we'll get to at the end, chapters 9 and 10, more than these parts. These are a little, I don't want to see trivial.
Yeah.
But they're just, kind of here and there.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's probably deep reason, and I've read it a few times, listened to it.
Yep.
I'm not certain. So.
Famine and besieged Samaria. Sometime later, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mobilized his entire army and marched up and laid siege to Samaria. There was a great famine in the city, and the siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 8 shekels of silver and a quarter of a cab of seed pods for 5 shekels.
There wasn't something about a pigeon's dung too. It's like bird poop sold for something. I'm like,
this sounds like inflation.
Yeah, something.
Sound
weird.
familiar?
Yeah. Oh. Just for the record, this is 2023 for reference on that.
So again, sort of jumping here, right? Now we get into a woman who saw the king walking on the wall. I don't know what he's doing up there observing or whatever.
And this is frightening, so go ahead.
And she asked him for help. And he said basically, well, what can I do? You know what I mean? But all right, what do you want? And the woman said to him in verse 28, this lady said to me, give up your son so that we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son. So remember, a famine's going on. They're hungry. They're starving.
But wait, repeat that.
I know. So it's nonchalant, right? Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son.
I mean, just think about this. I don't mean to procrastinate the video, but
Yeah.
what scenario are you going to give your son up so we can eat today?
Yeah. How hungry are you?
Yeah, my son can be a big pain in my butt, but at no point ever would I ever give him up to be eaten.
And there's nothing that like prepares you for this sentence.
I know.
It's like, what?
It's just
you
so
got to go
bizarre.
back and reread it like 3 times
But-
and make sure you're reading it correctly.
And it's even more bizarre, kind of what the king says.
Well, in verse 29, the lady says, so he cooked my son and ate him. That's it.
Well, but when they went to get her, she hit him. And that's when the king, he tore his robes. And
Yep.
if Elisha's still alive, I mean, why? I think I understand, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Well, anyways, the king tore his... the lady hit her son, so they couldn't eat
Yeah.
him, right? But she had a full belly from the day before from the other kid. And it turned out the king had sackcloth underneath, and people saw this.
So I don't, that doesn't make sense to me, other than it shows that, I don't know, he's atoning for something, I guess.
Yep.
But why is he mad? My guess is that he's mad at Elisha, the S-H-A versus Jah, J-A-H. Is maybe he blames the famine on him because he'd foretold that there would be a famine.
Right.
So maybe he's like, this guy, because...
That's all I could think, too.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Again,
Yeah.
let us know what you think, please.
Yeah, the Lord declared there was going to be a famine, but maybe he's attacking the messenger here.
Yep.
So Elijah was sitting in a house with some elders in verse 32.
Yeah.
Don't you see how this murderer, he's talking about the king, is sending someone to cut off my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold it shut against him. Is not the sound of his master's footsteps behind him? While he was talking, the messenger came down to him.
Yeah.
And the king was behind him, right? That's what he was talking about.
Yep.
King's with the messenger, basically.
Yeah, he knows the every move and the steps and everything.
The king says, this disaster is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer? So he knows it's not Elijah's fault, right? Elisha.
Told you it's confusing. So.
Elisha replied, and I forgot the verse in these. Sorry, guys. Hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord says. Again, he's speaking to the king.
I'll add, and I'll put it on there, and I'll put it in the link. You'll see it here.
Okay.
It's 7, 1 through 2, verse 1 through 2, chapter 7.
So
Second.
a great famine is going on, right? But now Elisha says to the king, about this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour will sell for a shekel,
Yeah.
and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gates of Samaria. And the officer who was with him said to the man of God in verse 2, look, even if the Lord should open the floodgates of the heavens, could this happen?
So they doubt it.
Absolutely. And Elisha's
does it.
answer was, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat any of it. And he's saying that to the officer.
Yes. Which is, I'm assuming that, as we'll find out, somebody's mad. I'll cut to. I'll wait until we get to there, but there's a reason for that. So.
The siege lifted. 4 men with leprosy went to the Armenians' camp and found it abandoned. The Lord had caused the Armenians to hear the sounds of chariots, horses, an army of men, etc., so they fled, leaving behind everything. The leprous men ate and drank and took items from the tents, gold, silver, etc., and hid them away. Then they said to each other in verse 9, they kind of came to their senses, right?
Yeah.
Well, morality set in. What we're doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let us go at once and report this to the royal palace. And they did so.
Which I thought, so it's kind of interesting, these lepers, right? They're like, there's a famine, and the city has nothing, so we can sit here and die. We can go in the city and die, or we can go see if the Syrians camp has, is that the Syrians, whoever the camp was, I forgot already. Armenians camp is, maybe they'll kill us, maybe they won't, but at least we won't sit here and die. So it was kind of an interesting look. And then what happens is, I thought it was interesting too, because the camp's empty.
Yeah.
And
they don't know why.
They don't.
Right.
But,
so they go and tell the king, and he's like, this has to be some sort of a setup for us, because why would their camp be empty? So he sent out 5 men to see what was going on. The 5 men reported back and said that, it is empty. So the people went and plundered, and a seah of the finest flour sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley sold for a shekel, as the Lord had said. Now the king had to put the officer on whose arm he leaned in charge at the gates. And the people trampled him in the gateway. And he died, just as the man of God had foretold when the king came down to his house.
He shall see it.
It happened as the man of God had said to the king. In verse 18, about this time tomorrow, a seah of the finest flour will sell for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley at the gate of Samaria, but you will not partake of it. You will not eat it.
So apparently they were trying to lock people in the city. I guess that. And he's like, he wasn't able to stop them. I like how he leaned heavy on them. Basically, he was under his control, right? So
absolutely. So 1 man at the gate, I guess, got trampled.
Yep.
The Shunammite's land restored. This is chapter 8. Elisha told the woman whose son he had restored to life.
Let's call him Elisha. He might be offended by Elisha. Nothing wrong with Elisha, but...
The woman whose son he restored to life, he told her that there would be a 7-year famine, and that she should leave, and her family. So her and her family ended up leaving, and they stayed in the Philistines. They returned 7 years later, only to find that their house and their land had been forfeited because they were away.
They moved on. Yep.
How would you say that name?
Gehazi?
Gehazi, Elisha's servant, who was speaking with the king, said in verse 5, this is the woman, Lord, my lord the king, and this is her son who Elisha restored to life. And the king ended up returning her home and her land.
So now that you've said that with such enthusiasm. So he was actually sharing this story with the king as she approached the city. He's like, oh, that's her?
Yeah.
That's her son. And then of course that's what, it really sparked it. Maybe it wasn't any more exciting with me saying it, but but the king did restore everything back to her, which was awesome. Sorry. Haziel.
Hazael murders Ben-Hadad.
Here's a guy, Hazael. Yeah.
Elisha went to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was ill. He sent Hazael to ask, will I recover from this illness? This is verse 9. Elisha replied in verse 10. Elisha, go and say to him, you will certainly recover. Nevertheless, the truth, he told the guy, is that the Lord revealed that in fact that he will die. In verse 13, the Lord has shown me that you will become king of Aram. Hazael went back and told the king that he would live, but the next day he killed the king and became his successor. Nice.
Yeah, and Elisha was sad. I mean, he was weeping when he told him, and he's like, well, Hazael is like, well, I'm just a dog. What do you mean? And then of course he got. So basically, he's like, yeah, he's gonna live, but God told this prophet that he's gonna be king, so I'm gonna kill him. You know what I mean, that was what he did, and he was a pretty bad guy, but he didn't last very long.
When I first read that, I thought that the truth is he's going to die. I really thought that the Lord would strike him down, or he'd die of natural causes. I had no idea that he'd go back and kill him, but that's what it said in the very next scene. That was weird. With a wet towel, he smothered him. That'd be terrible. Jehoram, king of Judah. Did I say that right?
Jehu, yep.
Jehu.
Yeah, so it's interesting because reading some other stuff. I think different books. It's J, it'll be on the screen. It's spelled a few different ways. Same person. No.
But I love Jehoshaphat.
Jehoshaphat.
Joram, son of Jehoshaphat, began his reign as king of Judah at age 32 and ruled 8 years. He married Ahab's daughter. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. The Lord would not destroy him for David's sake, though.
He's keeping that lamp lit for the house of David. So,
Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king, Joram, with all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his army, but they were able to break through and fled home. Joram rested with his ancestors and was buried with them in the city of David. And Ahaziah.
And that's Ahaziah. So I confuse Hazael with Ahaziah.
Ahaziah, his son, succeeded him as king.
And a little perspective on here, some of the details, and I don't know the names. That's what you're going to read for. But these are all Ahab's. So these folks are close. Jeroboam and kings of Judah and Israel are kind of related through the offspring of Ahab, and that's we as remembered from last time. Ahab was not so good, so
Right.
we'll continue on. That's just a point to kind of to cement here.
Ahaziah, king of Judah. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year, and he did evil. He and Joram went to war with Hazael, king of Aram, and Joram was wounded. Joram went to Jezreel to recover, and Ahaziah went to visit him there.
Yep.
Jehu appointed king of Israel.
Jehu.
Jehu.
Yeah, he's yeah,
Jarul.
he's a badass. I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
He no via. Well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Elisha had a fellow prophet anoint Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, king. In verse 3, then take the flask and pour the oil on his head and declare, this is what the Lord says. I anoint you king over Israel. Then open the door and run. Don't delay.
Yeah, get out of there. Get out. That doesn't make sense. Well, and 'cause especially since the Lord, Elisha told his prophet. But a few important things to note, and I don't know if we got that, but the Bible for Dummies said that Jehu was he was the commander of Jerome. So he was
Okay.
an important figure. So that sheds some importance to what happens next, right?
I mean, it says here that Jehu he was instructed by the Lord to destroy the entire house of Ahab.
Yeah, but so what happens is they're in the middle of a meeting, right? Allegedly, well, they're in the middle of this inner house of the council or whatever, and the prophet or Elisha's, I call them Elisha now. Prophet comes in and it pulls him, and they have to talk to you, which is suspicious, or at least interesting.
Yeah.
So when he came out, they probably saw him like fleeing.
Yeah, right.
What
right.
happened, and he's like, well, they
Yeah.
say this and they say that, and they're like, oh, come on. And he told them, and they're like, they bowed. They immediately said,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So,
In verse 13, they said, Jehu is king.
Yep, and bent down and basically swore allegiance to him.
But do you understand the having to turn and run?
Not at all.
I thought maybe a
well, I
lightning
shouldn't say
bolt
not
was
at
gonna
all.
come down and get out of there before the place bursts into flames. Or
Because Elisha told him, Elijah speaks, God speaks to him. How, we don't know. I don't know if it was as tight and as close as it was to Moses' day, on Samuel's and stuff, but he obviously knows. I mean, I think he comes to them at these points in their dreams and gives them ideas. But apparently, Elisha probably figured that there may be some chaos, so get out of there. I don't know. So,
Jehu.
or a comment, please, and let us
Jehu
know.
kills Joram and Ahaziah.
Ahaziah.
So Jehu conspires against Joram, who had returned to Jezreel to recover from his battle wounds. A lookout saw troops approaching. Joram sent out a horseman to ask if they came in peace. And Jehu said, get at the end of the line.
What do you know of peace?
Yeah.
Get behind
Get behind me.
Yeah.
He didn't return. So he sent out another one. Same exact thing happens. His lookout determined that it was Jehu because in verse 20 he said he drives like a maniac.
On his chariot. Dun, 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 dun.
know
Actually,
what's going on
wrong movie.
He
But,
drives like a maniac. Okay.
well, but the thing is okay, he sent two people and they didn't come back. And I don't think they knew at this time what had happened to him. But, okay, so him...
right,
so,
he has no idea.
So these two, Joram and Hazael, are going to go out and see him for themselves.
Yep. Jerome wrote out and asked if they came in peace. And Jehu says, how can there be peace? As long as all the adultery and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel abound.
Yep.
Jerome didn't like what he heard and turned and fled, calling out to Ahaziah,
Ahaziah.
treachery Ahaziah. Jehu drew his bow and shot Jerome through the heart. Went through his back and came out his heart.
Killed him.
Jehu said to Bidkar, his chariot officer, pick him up and throw him on the field that belongs to Naboth the Jezreelite, just as the Lord had prophesied. Ahaziah, king of Judah, saw what happened and fled. He was chased and wounded, but he escaped to Megiddo and died.
Is it
Megiddo.
Megiddo?
Megiddo. Right here. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I saw Bidkar. So
Oh, different
Yeah.
in
So
the
interesting.
ESV.
Yeah, yeah. Last
They
week
got to be the
mentioned.
same city, though.
Yeah, it's got to be different or same. Yeah, same city.
Jezebel killed Jehu.
Wow. Jehu. You don't like the Jehu?
I
Jehu.
keep thinking Ja Rule.
Yeah, rule.
The
Yeah,
rapper.
I think it's well. And
Jehu.
the only reason I know I call it Jehu is because when you listen to the Bible and it
I like
reads
that.
to you, they say Jehu. So that's how I know the names. It's not
Well, it
because
should be easy to remember. J. Okay.
who.
Jehu
Not
went
Jehu.
to
Yahoo. It's Jehu.
Rule.
And it, yeah.
Jehu went to Jezreel, and found Jezebel. Ugh, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Say that
Yes.
5 times fast.
Exactly.
She was thrown out of. Well, basically, she came out up to a balcony, right? And he ordered that she be thrown.
Well, she said, "Who's with me?" Jehu said, "Who's with me?" And the eunuchs, her accompaniment, didn't say anything, but they did as he asked. But so the interesting thing, and I'm going to bring it up because it does say that she dolled herself up, and I think the Bible for Dummies, it's not, I don't know who gets what from it, but the Bible for Dummies said it was misunderstood for years that she was trying to be seductive so Jehu wouldn't kill her, and they said that no, she did it to die with dignity,
Okay.
which
So
is it?
thrown out at the window and trampled by horses. Jehu ordered her to be
Jehu's horses. I mean,
Yeah.
So
Jehu ordered her to be buried, but all that was left was bones when they went to.
well, so they trampled her. Then they went to eat, and then he said, "Well, she's a king's wife.
Yeah.
Go bury her." When they went back, the only thing was left was her hands, and
Right.
and because as the Lord said,
Yep. This is what the word of the Lord that he spoke through his servant Elijah,
Elijah.
the Tishbit.
Tishbite.
On the plot of ground of Jezreel, dogs will devour Jezebel's flesh. In verse 37, Jezebel's body will be like dung on the ground in the plot of Jezreel, so that no one will be able to say, "This is Jezebel."
So I like that. Did you say that he shall be the dung on the
Mm-hmm.
face of the field in the territory of Jezreel? She's going to be dog poop, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
she
That from the Lord.
Woo! I hate to make light of it, but I'm like, I'm gonna.
Oh.
So we have again, we haven't even seen it yet. The last part is the greatest. I mean, of this.
So where does her soul go when she's dead?
Well, God loves her like He loves everybody else, even though she was evil. But I'm not certain. I mean, I'm not certain at all because I don't know how the Old Testament works.
Right.
I know how the New Testament works.
Chapter 10. Ahab's family killed. Ahab's family killed. Now they were in Samaria, 70 sons of the house of Ahab. Jehu sent a letter saying to appoint, this is to like the palace administrator, telling him to appoint one of the 70 king and be prepared for war against me. The palace admin sent a letter back in verse 5. We are your servants and will do anything you say. We will not appoint anyone as king. You do whatever you think was best. So he did not want to go to war. So all 70 princes were killed and beheaded, and they were delivered in baskets to the city. And the Lord had done what he announced through his servant Elijah in verse 11. So Jehu killed everyone in Jezreel who remained of the house of Ahab, as well as all his chief men, his closest friends. You couldn't even be friends with the guy.
Yeah, no, it's
And his priests, leaving him no survivor. Wow.
and that's just round one. I mean, this. So
What if you were marked? I got to die because I'm friends with you? What the?
Randy? You got to pick.
Jehu set out for Samaria and ran into some relatives of King Ahaziah. In verse 14, take them alive, he ordered. So they took them alive and slaughtered them by the well of Beth Akid. 42 of them. He left no survivor.
So there's 112 folks already.
Yeah. When Jehu came to Samaria, he killed all who were left there of Ahab's family. He destroyed them according to the word of the Lord spoken to Elijah. And we're at the tail end here already. Servants of Baal killed. I like this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this ending here. So basically, Jehu sent word for all Baal worshippers to gather at the temple
So
of Baal.
I feel bad because I'm not trying to do it. I think is it Baal or Baal? I mean, you can say. I mean, I apologize.
It's probably Baal. Baal. It's
I
probably
mean, it
Baal.
could be. I mean, they read it as Baal, but it's funny because after I listened to this so many times because my eyes get tired when I read. So
Yeah.
then it kept hearing Baal. So every time you say it, I'm like, ching. So my bad. So Randy, call him whoever you like.
I see A, like
Well,
Randy.
double A.
Yeah, double A.
Double
I
A
don't see
is
too
A,
often.
I think, as in
Aaron?
A. Yeah.
Aaron?
Aaron.
A.
Aaron. Aaron.
All
I
right.
don't know. Who knows?
Jehu,
I can't stop it.
Jehu sent word to Baal. Did I say that right?
That's fine.
Worshippers to gather at the temple of Baal to offer a great sacrifice. And they were told to come. If they didn't come, they would die. Basically, he was being deceptive, right? Because
Yeah. He said. Well, so interesting. He was telling. Who did he tell? Oh, Jehonabad. So he, I thought, was one of the Ahab people, and I could be misunderstanding that, but he said, "Is your heart true to me?" first, and he's like, "Of course." And so he pulls him in his chariot, he takes him down, and he says, "We're gonna do this." And I think he is in cahoots with Jehu. I think that's why he mentioned,
Okay.
"Is your heart true to me?" Because he's going to deceive many people, because he's gonna have a ruse set up to bring all the Baal worshipers
He's
to
going to end this whole
yeah.
Baal worshiping.
Well, that's what, as we'll learn, it was God's plan.
So they all came, and he had them killed, basically. They went into the temple,
Yeah,
and he told his men to slaughter him.
yeah, and
Cut him down with a sword.
so he basically he said, we're gonna have you show your joy for the Lord as I do. We're gonna have a big ceremony, and we're gonna have offer sacrifices. And he made sure all the garments were brought, and everybody put on their garments. He made sure Jehonadab sent folks to make sure there was no non-Baal worshippers, because this is a sacred ceremony just for Baal worshippers. Yeah. So get all the non-believers out. And when he said that he had his guards, his 80 men standing outside, and told them that if anybody leaves, it's your life.
Yeah.
So they're holding them in there. Then when he said it's time to make a sacrifice, dun da da, he sent in his 80 men and they just literally wiped out the entire.
No more Baal. Baal is gone. Baal is dead for now. Then the men brought the sacred stone from the temple and burned it. How do you burn a stone?
It said pillar in the ESV.
Okay, it said stone in NIV.
Yeah, so
tore down and then they tore down the temple.
But what is it? What is it still to this day? They said
a pisser.
A shitter, yeah, a latrine.
Yeah, a latrine. But okay, so he quit the practice of worshiping Baal, but he continued the worship of golden calves at Bethel and Dan.
So I don't know if he worshipped. So he didn't. So I didn't get that. I said Jehu wiped out Baal from Israel, but did not turn aside from the sins of Nebat. Left the golden calves in Bethel and Dan. So I don't know if he worshipped them or he just didn't take them down.
Okay.
But because it's a very climactic story, as we've learned, because he does everything God says, but then it kind of piddles out.
I'll have to go back and look at the NIV and see if it actually used the word worship. I may have just thrown that in there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you could have inferred from the sentence or understood. Yep. But that's what I don't get is they build all this build-up about Jehu, and then for doing this, even though he didn't follow in the righteous path, because, again, I'm going to refer to my, and I probably should post this up one of these times. This is the side we're looking at. Jehu's yellow. So green is good, red, pink is bad, and yellow is what they say other.
Intermediate.
So, it's other, and that means that he did the bidding of what Elijah had told, God had told Elijah, but he didn't do what you're saying. But he still let 4 generations of his lineage.
But then, in verse 30, he gets praise from the Lord. He said, "Because the Lord says to Jehu, because you have done well in accomplishing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab all I had in mind to do, your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the 4th generation." Yep. So again, I guess he's not perfect. The Lord's not expecting him to be perfect. Nobody is. But he's happy with what he's done overall.
Yep. And he ruled.
Jehu rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. And, good luck with that name, his son.
Jehoaz?
Thank you. And his son succeeded him as king. The time that Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria was 28 years.
Yep. So it was, he was, again, going back on my slightly bad words, he's a badass. I mean, I read in Bible for Dummies that he's criticized for his carnage, and I don't understand that. Maybe we'll get to it and understand. Well, we will get to it. and then maybe understand their argument. But he's doing what God said. He was going to wipe out Ahab's family from the history books.
Right.
I mean, well, from the
Right.
lineage of today, I guess is the way to say it. So
And
it was kings, kings and kings and kings and
I wonder
prophets.
if we'll end up seeing Baal come back eventually.
I mean, based on the sins that keep repeating, I don't. I mean, so he's.
That's what I'm
Yeah, it will be interesting because we had one of the chapters. He talked about Beelzebub. We've heard about Beelzebub. I don't know if it's the same person. It's hard to say. Names are different.
Now they all had to come because they were threatened under the threat of death if they didn't come. But somewhere out there in the lands there was some poor sap that probably had the sniffles and couldn't make it.
Exactly.
So he's going to continue to worship Baal.
I'm going to say
Baal.
Yeah, I'm still going to say I don't understand how you witnessed so many things that like Elisha and Elijah and all their forefathers, because this is the Old Testament. It's pretty much the stories they lived and their ancestors lived and walked and talked with God or know somebody who did, and they turned away from him.
Right.
So simple. So we wonder why today's in the shape we're in. When people we've forgotten. I mean, literally my opinion, the great plan. I mean,
it seems so dumb that I almost think that is there a little devil sitting on their shoulder whispering in their ear? You know what I mean? Because it just doesn't make sense.
I don't get it. I mean, it's interesting because it does parallel again, I've read lots of parts of the Bible and been to church all my life, but never just what we're doing now is cover to cover. And every time you think that we're at the worst times, we're reading pretty bad times.
Yeah,
I mean, so
absolutely.
Not to say that anything's times now are better. It's just or worse.
It's
the same.
There's like some insanity in here. I mean,
Yeah.
This is like craziness. But I guess you could look at our own government and say there's some insanity and things that don't make common sense. There's no common sense a lot of times.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then the big thing is I'm repeating my theme is it's pretty obvious to me because I'm a believer without a doubt. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say without I can't say without 100% doubt, but it's I have faith, which is what you want. But you need God, and you need to listen to God and follow God's lead and direction. And without it, you see what happens. And these people are so turned away. And again, it's paraphrased, I think, even in the story. So there might be a lot of details, but still, I mean, when they're walking with Moses, they're still. I mean, they went through so many trials and tribulations and being saved.
Right.
Like, we're going to starve in the desert. I'm like,
right.
So.
And from generation to generation, these stories are passed down. So you think that generation would learn. But you know what? I think we even see with our own new generations coming along and stuff that these kids just don't learn. I think they think they're invincible. They're never going to die.
Could be like the stories we hear from our, we're telling now. We used to walk both ways to school, uphill both ways. And
right.
So,
and you know what? And also when you're young, the consequences are way
goodness
down
gracious.
the
Or there are
road.
no consequences because the reality is you don't think about.
No, you're not concerned about that because that is so far off. If I even die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and then it sneaks up on you like
Sweet.
that.
Well, you have a sip. So this on a sip. So
thanks for joining us, everybody.
you keep reading and
Keep
you all
reading
come
the
back.
Bible.
Now you hear.
All right. Take care.
Salute.